Great. Thank you so much, Tamara, for that introduction. I'll just get this screen up and running for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you can all see that now. So our front slide, just letting us know that you've turned up for the right session today. If you're expecting something else, you'll find yourself in the wrong Zoom room. So welcome very much. As Tamara mentioned, my name's Carolyn Mitchell. I'm from Empowered HR, and my business partner Lorraine's also on today's call. So both faces are with you today. Lorraine's actually taking the session next Friday, working from home, tips for employees. So if you've got team members that you'd like them to get some tips, etc., they can certainly sign up for next week's session, and they'll hear from Lorraine. We work in the human resources space, so looking after all facets of the employee experience. So today we're talking about remote working and working from home, and I'm going to sort of give some tips today around working from home generally and leading a remote workforce, because that does happen from time to time and we've all experienced that, but also some specific tips relating to COVID-19 and the pandemic that sees all of us working from home, or if not most of us. So from March this year, we've certainly seen a change in the way that we work, and that most notably is around where we're working from. For some people, that's the first time they've worked from home. For others, it might be the first time we've worked exclusively from home. So I've now been at home for 11 weeks, and I'm traditionally a person who's never home, let alone home to work. So it's been quite an experience and quite a different one than doing the odd day here or there. So while we're still working under the restrictions of the pandemic, we're hearing about the easing of those restrictions coming up over the next little while, but we will expect that there'll be an easing into working back in physical workplaces. And even once we are, people might be taking up the option to work from home more frequently now that we're set up. So I wanted to check in with you before I let you know exactly what we're talking about today around what is your experience of working from home. So is it, one, you're amazing, love it, it's fantastic, it works really well for your style, you're productive, connected, all of those things? Or are you a two, look, it's functional, I do it, I'm getting there, but it's not my preference? Or three, you know what, it's challenging and it's tough. And that might be due to just the nature of what you need to do through your work, or it could be to do with technology, having a household full of people all at once, any of those things. So feel free to use the chat and just 1, 2, or 3 what your experience is looking like. Because our own experience certainly influences the way that we lead. So being clear around what it is for you is going to be really important, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So we've had teething issues. We've had those what did I see, the waves of coronavirus. Riding those. 1 week, this is fantastic, I'm productive, I'm loving life, I don't think I need to go back to work, and then the next going, I can't do the basics, I can't get anywhere, I'm trying to get tech support, etc. So this can be quite changeable for us and our people, but we've definitely come a little way in that time. So today's roadmap, to give you an idea of how I've broken down today's session, is we're going to take a look up front around our own leadership style and our mindset. So getting ourselves right first and being really clear around what that looks like. That then gives you a lens to start looking at some of the other elements that we've broken today down into. So when we start looking at what is the experience, some of the context and details around physical and psychological safety, what might we need to be aware of, and what can you do around living the type of leader you want to be and your mindset around some of those things. We'll also take a look at physical, emotional, and social wellbeing. Those are very closely linked to productivity and engagement that we'll talk about a little bit later. productivity and efficiency of work is really important, but how we talk about it and getting those first two right is critical. We'll then take a look at effective communication and finally around culture and engagement. So the way that I'll run through today's session is just to spend a couple of minutes on each of these areas, give a bit of context, some of the things we might need to be conscious of, and some tips on what we might like to incorporate into our own leadership. These sessions are also really good to let you know and have that thought, oh, I'm doing this already. And you can give yourselves a nice big tick and you're doing some really great things already. Sometimes we can be a bit tough on ourselves and feel like we're missing out and there's some other secret sauce out there we need to know about. But quite often we're doing a lot of the really great things already. There'll be an opportunity for you to chat and just to make some of your own notes after today's session. You will have a copy of these slides made available to you, and I've also got another tip sheet just to highlight some of the things we did cover today, but also some of the things we didn't get time to do as well. So you'll have a 2-3 pager to take away with you that will be emailed out by Tamara this afternoon. Okay, so let's kick off. Leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. What I really like about this quote is it gets to the heart of what leadership is. So I want you to be thinking about who are you as a leader as you embark on remote leadership. So what is great leadership to you? Write down just 2 or 3 words. What's really important? Then think about how you would describe your own leadership. And in that way, use just 3 words. Keep it nice and simple, nice and manageable. Describe your own leadership. What we think about ourselves, the things that we hold dear, our values, our beliefs, and the type of things we're proud of is really important to our leadership. And that's different for all of us, and that can be great. So when you're leading remotely or you're leading physically in the environment, lead like you. So you don't have to be anybody else except yourself. And the third question here is, how would others describe your leadership? And we're really tempted sometimes to go back to the question we've just answered and that it's the same, right? The intention I put out there is the way that people experience and receive that information, but it's not always the case. So this can be an important way for you to go in and check in with your people. Who are you as a leader? What are you proud of? What do you think represents you? And do people describe you in the same or similar way? Because leading with authenticity is really important, and integrity, which is that what I say and what I do are the same things. There's a congruence between those two things. Now, these are some basic sort of leadership principles, but they become really apparent in a remote environment because we're trying to connect with people in a slightly different way, and we've got quite a different experience of the world and work at this point in time. So think about the type of leader you are so that when you are going through these tips over the next 20 minutes, you're thinking about what are the things that I can be doing, what actions can I be taking that bring me back to living the kind of leader I want to be, okay? The other thing I want to touch on before we sort of sink our teeth into it is around mindset. So getting our headspace and the lens we look at life through right, and being really clear around what that is, particularly around remote learning. So our mindset is the beliefs or the way of thinking that determines our behaviour, outlook, and mental attitude. So what sort of attitude do you have when it comes to working from home? So feel free to share those in the chat screen if you want to with somebody else at the moment. Let them know and pop in there, you know, do you trust easily or don't you? And be really honest with yourself that, you know, do you have that mindset that if people are working from home, they're slacking off? Or if their little green light on their Skype or whatever has gone, that they mustn't be working? Or is your belief that people are super productive when they're at home and it's the best way of working? But what beliefs and what mindset do you have? Because despite what you say to your people, they will know your beliefs will come through. It influences the language that you use, the attitude that you bring, the types of conversations you engage in or that you don't. So understand here for you what's really important. So just a few questions to consider. And again, I'm asking you to think on the spot as we go through these questions and these slides relatively quickly, but it might be something you sort of want to ponder over the weekend or even into next week, thinking about and refining what those things are. And it might be important for you to share that with your employees and your team members as well. Let them know what kind of leadership is great in your opinion. Let them know what kind of leader you want to be for them. Let them know what you think about working from home, what you find challenging really well for you. But how you experience it and that mindset you have is going to flow through everything that you do. Okay, so leadership is a choice. It's not a rank. When people feel safe, remarkable things happen. Getting the environment right is critical. Simon Sinek. What we're going to cover off here is physical and psychological safety, and safety being our number one responsibility. This is the absolute non-negotiable that we need to get right as leaders. If our people are unsafe, if they're living in a fear state or a threat state, all of the other stuff will be in vain. It won't penetrate. It won't connect. So getting this right is really important. Now, some of these things, safety first always, is going to be relevant for working from home all of the time. And some of what I'm going to touch on in here particularly is actually in relation to COVID-19 and the need for us to work exclusively from home or the majority of time at home. So we need to make sure that while people are at home, it's an extension of the workplace. So we need to make sure that they are physically safe and that they have the right setup available to them. Now, it's not quite the same as being in the workplace or in an office where we have control over ergonomics, the height of desks, the other infrastructure we have, the type of chairs, etc. But we need to be doing everything that's possible to make sure that our people are safe physically. We need to make sure that they have the right environment at home as well. And this is where some of the things particularly relevant to us right now is, is it the right environment for people at home? Might we be hearing about, they're not doing so well, and we'll talk about well-being in a moment, or might home not be a safe place for them? And just being conscious of that, knowing what the signs might be to pick up and how to have a conversation around some of those things. So you've got psychological and physical safety. Now, creating the right environment where people can talk about that is really important. So some of the tips I wanted to mention to you here is to ask employees about their workspace setup. You might even ask them to send in a photo or let them know what it's like. How is it working? Because what might work one day here and there is not going to work or be safe for people to be working sort of 38 hours a week at ongoing. Ensure that the ergonomic assessments are more than a tick box. So just emailing it out to employees and asking them to do it is not enough. Check in. Again, we're doing this for extended periods, so you might like to have on the first of the month, we all do another one. Check in, how are you sitting, how are you feeling, has anything changed? Encourage employees to move their bodies and stretch every 20 minutes or so. Working at home, we've got everything we need at our disposal very close by. So we're not going for a walk to the coffee shop, the bathroom's just next door, the kitchen's not far away either. So get up and stretch, You might even like to have a setup where you can have meetings and stand up, or even meetings where you don't require video conferencing, but you can have a phone meeting and perhaps go for a walk, because we're finding that people are more sedentary, working from home during that time. So regularly check in and talk about safety, because things change. Because we go from having one person working from home, and you might have a partner, son or daughter, housemate, etc., and you're having to squeeze around the same little desk or table. So just be conscious of having the conversation, but creating the right environment where people can share that with you. When I is replaced by we, even illness becomes wellness. Physical, emotional, and social well-being is really critical for all of us. It's not just good for individuals, it's good for business too. So looking after ourselves and each other is something we need to be thinking about and investing in. What we have at this point in time is there's out of sight, out of mind that can be a real problem in a remote working environment. People can start to feel quite lonely and isolated, even if they're not alone. So there's been some incredible research into the physical and emotional impact of isolation and loneliness. They now call the new smoking. Life has changed for all of us, which means even though we're not just attending work, at the moment we also might not be engaging in sporting activities, heading to the gym, catching up with friends and family, heading out to engage in hobbies, religious practice and those sorts of things. So life has changed considerably, and we're not able to be engaged in some of those activities that are good for our mind, body and soul. And what we've also got is this exposure through our social media, through the news, through people that we talk to, conversations that we're having around what is going on in the world. And it's been an incredible 2 months with some very bleak stories out there. So know that emotional contagion is a very real thing. It's a phenomenon of having one person's emotions and related behaviours directly trigger similar emotions or behaviours in others. So that sense of picking up on other people's fear or anger, concern, frustration. But it also works the other way. So think about the nature of the team meetings that you're having, the conversations you're having. Is it all doom and gloom, or are we talking about potential and the things that are working well for us? So know that we can spread some goodness in ourselves as leaders. So choosing our language, the topics of conversations, and ensuring we've got that balance. Our brains have got a negativity bias, which means that we notice the bad stuff more frequently, we feel it more intensely, and that feeling lasts longer. So spreading the good stuff does take a lot of energy and effort for us to counterbalance that. So have conversations with employees about their well-being and how they're looking after themselves. You don't need to have the answers here, and this is not for us to preach to people about, eating good meals, etc. But this is just starting the conversation so that we've got that congruence between us saying, I care about you and your well-being, and here's how I bring that to life. I talk about it. We make time to do that. Encourage people to establish ways to unplug after work. So the research tells us that the most cited concern or challenge to working from home is that inability to unplug. So people usually work more extended hours. And even if they're broken up with parenting responsibilities, etc., they will tend to log back on after dinner. So never quite being able to turn off. Also conscious that I might have my work set up on my dining table at the moment, which is right next to my lounge room and right next to my bedroom. So I'm never really feeling like I'm getting away from work either, because the physical space helps us punctuate our lives. So, sharing some of what might be your own tips and experiences. And one of mine is, at the end of the day, I take my dog for a quick walk around the block. And that's my signal to get outside, get some fresh air, and to unhook from work. Some of the other things to help people maintain connection is bring as much human as possible to your communication. So have meetings that might be purely operational, very tactical and functional. Have others where you might be just connecting with each other. So, for instance, the biggest morning tea was this week, and some workplaces have had virtual morning teas, worn aprons, had a bit of a bake-off and shown each other what they've cooked up. So do what you can to bring some life and bring some human connection, which is what happens anecdotally as we move around office spaces together. We're missing that. Where possible, if it's a quick and easy message or email, do that. But if there's an opportunity to have a phone call or even a video call, take that option. Bring as much human and connection as we can. Set up a buddy network so that we've got people checking in with each other. Some leaders have got big teams and it can be challenging to get around to everyone all of the time. So take a load off and get people teamed up with each other to check in with each other. Create a network where employees are looking after each other. Teams care, they care about each other, so give them an opportunity to engage in that. Encourage people to take breaks. So not scheduling meetings over lunchtime and things like that, because if you're saying your health and wellbeing is important to us, and yet we're constantly booking over breaks or we've got back-to-back meetings, there's no congruence between what we say and what we do. And you might like to invest in physical, emotional, and social wellbeing in a variety of ways. So, that might be mindfulness has really taken off. It's something that we do in our business, in organisations. We're just doing a 30-day mindfulness challenge at the moment for May. We're seeing organisations take this up like they never have before. Go for a walk, get involved in, I think there was a 50 Ks for May type challenge. But also just bringing awareness to people so that if we're better informed about mental health concerns and issues or loneliness or, having breaks and those sorts of things, just remind people so that it can remain top of mind while we're still trying to get all of the work done. Other things here, you might like to have a virtual coffee catch-up where the topic isn't about work, it's just about life. Whether you do that yourself with, someone you care about, or you do it as an organisation, or buddies might like to do that as well. It's a great opportunity now that we're home to eat some great nutritious meals. We can spend some time whipping up a good meal rather than hitting the Macca's drive-through for lunch too. So there's all sorts of ways to talk about this and encourage people to look after themselves. Investing in themselves and their own well-being is investing in everyone else's. So get creative here, and I want you to think, and you might just make a note here for yourself, is how could I ask, are you okay? Because that question in itself, checking in with people, the response is, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm okay. And that question can be, you see people close off to it a little bit. So think about different types of questions you can ask to tune into and see how your employees are doing. So things you might be asking sort of aside to this is, what are you doing to have fun? What exercise are you getting at the moment? And even ask them to give you advice if you're trying to work on this yourself. How can I support you? What made you smile today? Who have you been in contact with lately? There's all sorts of questions that you can ask, and some of these will come through on our tip sheet. But think about who you are as a leader. What would naturally come to you? What would be the words that you would say? If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Henry Ford, one of my favourite quotes. Productivity and the efficiency of work is what we're going to take a really quick look at here. And the message here is that our direction is what's important over speed. So making sure that we're all moving forward together is what's critical. And you get out what you put in. So as leaders, we really need to be investing in these conversations, not once or twice, but making sure we bring it up regularly. People want to feel like they're making a valuable contribution. And working from home, they may not feel like that as much, depending on the nature of their work. They might not see the fruits of their labour, or walk past somebody, in the kitchen that says, oh, great work on that. We're not quite getting that reinforcement we usually do and seeing the outcomes of our work. But people really want to be productive. So really being able to call some of that stuff out is going to be important. As we know, technology issues and not having the right equipment can be a huge challenge, and we've certainly been finding our way through that, but it doesn't mean that they're gone and that they don't come up from time to time. So what are we doing to get rid of or eliminate those ongoing issues and dealing with them? And then how do we ride those other ones that come up from time to time? We need to be flexible as we juggle work and life. So this is about thinking a little differently to the way that we work. The standard 9 to 5 doesn't quite work and hasn't quite worked for many over the last couple of months, particularly as schools closed down and parents have taken on that role of teacher as well. So hours might change. Thinking about what suits and works for people, so that if we've had a conversation around what the outcome needs to be, how to be productive, how people go about it, and when they go about it, we could be a little more flexible on. And knowing that during this time, people are still having a very human experience, right? It's a global pandemic. We've not lived through one before. So when we see change, particularly on a scale like this, we see initial drops in productivity. So then our role as leaders is, how do we bring that back up? Arrange quick and regular virtual huddles. Some teams are doing this, first thing in the morning, 9 o'clock for 5 minutes. It's a quick huddle. What's on for today? What help do you need? Where to next? They can be nice and quick, and it helps people get around each other, communicate. You get cross-collaboration as well. Encourage a curiosity mindset and get people innovating. You don't need to have all the answers as the leader. So find problems in the team and ask them to help solve it. And your role can be as coach. You might just need to approve it at the end of the day if changes need to be made, but empower your people to help solve some of those challenges themselves. Spend time celebrating wins and successes, but also celebrate effort. So as we get things done, let people know they've done a really great job. And we can assume people already know. Of course they do. They know they've done a great job and this is what they need to do. But remember that even delivering in the same way we were 6 months ago, but now we're doing it in the midst of a global pandemic, family members at home all day, every day, and our own personal experience, challenges with technology, etc. That's a real feat to get some of even the most basic things done. So just the effort involved and celebrating that can be important. Be absolutely clear on expectations, and if you think people are clear, just clarify again. Let them know what outcomes you're looking for and what good looks like. And this goes for outside of pandemic conditions as well. We find that when there are performance issues or challenges, taking people back to being clear around expectations is where we didn't quite get it right. And we'll talk about communication in just a moment. We want to help people be aware of the conditions for their own productivity and help coach them. So ask them, when are you most productive? What are the conditions? Okay, a quiet space between 9 and 11 is my greatest opportunity, etc., etc. And help them manage their work. So if they're doing reporting that requires great attention to detail, doing that between 9 and 11, first thing in the morning, is going to work best. But just helping bring awareness. It's not necessarily rocket science, but it's just the ability to ask questions and get people to reflect. Know what motivates your people and lean on that. Know what good looks like for them, and you can help work with them on feeling good about those things. And finally, address issues early. While we're being very understanding, of course, under our current environment, We're not doing anyone favours if we see an issue that we're not addressing. So make sure that you're talking about it early, as it's quite a small problem or small issue to fix and rectify, rather than it continuing on for a long period of time, and it's a lot bigger effort to help deal with at that point. Okay, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. Now, we've all got examples of that. It's either going to work for us or against us. And the important message here I want you to take away is to crank up the communication. Do more of it, be more engaged with your teams, and you'll find yourself as a leader spending more time on the phone or in video conferencing and things like that. We can't rely on those organic conversations, so we need to orchestrate that communication. You might like to introduce an email, an end of week wrap up. So today's Friday, perfect opportunity to do this for the first time. Have little anecdotes in there, include a picture or a funny. Talk about what's worked really well this week or what's been challenging, but just a way of summarising the week for everyone and keeping all of the team across what's happening. Make time for your one-on-one and your group meetings, and if you find yourself cancelling these, reconsider the time or the day that you've scheduled those. They're really important to have so that you're all on the same page. You want to invest in building relationships, and we only do that when we connect with each other. Let people know what good looks like and have them involved in communication. Again, as leaders, we've got a lot on our plate. We don't need to do everything. So get people to contribute. If you've got multiple teams or team members, get them to send you one highlight for the week, and you can pop it together in your end of week wrap up. So help get your teams to do some of the heavy lifting, and they'll tell you what's important that they want others to know or that they want to share with them. And our last area, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. This is about culture and engagement and the role we play as leaders. I worked with a CEO years ago who said, culture is what happens when the CEO leaves the room. And I thought that was really interesting because that's how we work when our leader is not around. So it's not just what we say, but it's what we do. So the way that we're working is important. People who feel appreciated will always do more. Highlight your team, your organisational values, and include that in your weekly catch-up or your team meeting, but highlight the good news stories there. Storytelling is incredibly powerful and helps reset for people what good looks like. Be your team's greatest cheerleader, celebrate great work, find new and innovative ways to do things that you've always loved. So if birthdays are a big part of your team culture, celebrate them. If getting together for games or fun, have a trivia afternoon or a trivia lunch or something like that. You might like to find ways to do some good together, like the biggest morning tea, raising money for cancer research. There's other ways you can volunteer money and time to help raise money, and that brings people together like never before. Share learning experiences, and that helps bring people together, sharing information and innovation. So you might have some of your own examples and things here that, as I said at the beginning, you might already be doing and doing a great job of. So that's an opportunity for you to be proud and continue working in that way. If you're not sure, to ask your team. Say, hey, I'd really love to do more to bring our values to life. What ideas have you got? Again, involve your team to do some of that heavy lifting. So I wanted to leave you with this message. Imperfections are not inadequacies. They are reminders that we're all in this together. The famous Brené Brown, I'm a huge super fan of hers. So know that we're not always going to get this right. We won't always say the right thing or do the right thing or get the conditions perfect. But trying goes a long way. We learn a lot, but also learn from our own experience, letting people know we don't have to be perfect all of the time. So be kind to yourself in that respect. Okay, so Tamara, that's it from me. If we wanted to open it up to any questions, comments, or even ideas that people wanted to share with each other.
Yep, I'm just going to unmute everyone, or everyone can unmute themselves.
Fantastic.
Yep, everyone should be good to go.
Any questions or reflections?
I was just typing, I wish I'd done this 2 months ago. In March. Yeah, some great tips there. Thanks, Carolyn.
Hi everyone. We're currently running sort of teams and virtual sort of Friday afternoon. We catch up with the teams and maybe have a Zoom drink, just to keep the team focused. And yeah, so it does help. So what you've brought up is you know, really works. It's just, yeah, so it's great.
I've heard people call it quarantini hour on Friday afternoon to catch up for drinks.
Yeah, we do virtual bingos and things like that just to keep momentum going. Yeah, we might have, last week we had Hawaiian Friday night with the team. So everyone dresses in Hawaiian. So I guess it keeps them sort of, yes, I'm still there. Still, you know, if you need anything, we still can communicate even though we're working from home. So yeah, I guess the only challenge I had at home was I have year 12 at home. So that was challenging for him, trying to sort of get things done for him as well as my work. But yeah, I'm glad they're back because they really do need that face-to-face contact with their teacher, especially in VCE.
There's so much going on for us on every level at the moment, and we're learning our way through it, that is for sure. So, you know, I know we've all heard of that, you know, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I know that, you know, it can get a bit of an eye roll sometimes, but there's so much truth in it. At the moment, we're looking after teams, our own businesses, our family members. There's a lot going on. So sometimes it's, you know, getting our mindset the opposite way around to invest in ourselves so that we can be that for other people.
I think the key thing during this sort of time with you and working remotely is being really clear and concise with communication, and keeping, you know, the team members informed with every step that's going on. I'm coming from an industry that's really impacted by this whole thing, and I think that regular communication on what's going on is key, because otherwise you are at home, you are speculating, and I think just to stop that speculation and you know, it's understandably, you know, we don't know where we're going from day to day or left to right, but having some sort of idea, and even just, you know, and I think being honest about it as well too is, look, you know, we just don't know, like, it's just, we're kind of working through the processes and just keeping it really, like, keeping those lines open, definitely, especially when you're doing remote and this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, communicate small and communicate often. You know, I'm on the phone all day thinking I've told everyone because I've told the story a few times, yet someone a week later says, I missed out on that. Wait, hang on a minute. What's going on? And you make another great point there, Samantha, is when we don't have the answers, we fill in the gaps. It's human nature. Our brains love predictability. And if we don't have that certainty, we make it up. And at the moment, we've really turned the volume up on that, because on a global level, we don't have answers, let alone what that means as a trickle down to our teams. Well, unless there's any other questions or comments, you'll get this pack and the links here, but feel free to reach out to me directly, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Please connect with us. We love to share our knowledge and our tips from time to time. Again, just a little reminder around some of the things that we know to be challenges, but also such blessings, leading teams and leading our businesses as well. So I'd love to hear from you after today. As I mentioned, Lorraine will be running a session next week for employees, team members, to get some tips around working from home. So if you've got anyone you'd like to point in that direction, yeah, we'd love them to register and see them next Friday.
Beautiful. And those details can be found on our Eventbrite or on our website or on our Facebook page. So certainly jump over there, click the link and jump on. We'd love to see you all again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Like Carolyn said, if no one else has got any questions or points of topic, we'll head off. Thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you to Carolyn and Lorraine for making this happen today. Certainly a useful topic that we can all use now and going forward, so for the COVID world and the post-COVID world as well. And we look forward to seeing you all next week, and thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone.